Well, many of you will remember that last week's sermon was called V.I.P, Very Important Person. And we talked about how a V.I.P in God's kingdom looks very different than a V.I.P in the world's kingdoms, right? While one praises wealth and authority, a very important person in God's kingdom gives all that away and serves all the others. So today's sermon is called V.I.P Section. And it brings to mind a moment in my sister and my grandmother's life when they were doing some traveling together. What happened is that my sister was going to try and go to film school, and so she had to go to Boston, and there was a lot of famous filmmakers were going to be there, and she was going to try and just get into this program, and she knew it was a long shot, but she thought she'd try. So she called my grandmother and told her about the opportunity, and she said, and I'm going to have to go to Boston to try out for this, Nanny. And Nanny said, oh, honey, I've always wanted to go to Boston. Oh, that's the cradle of our nation. All my life I've wanted to go to Boston. And Kathy said, well, why don't you come with me? We'll meet up halfway and we'll go to Boston together. And, I'll be there for a couple days. The audition is one day long, and we can spend a couple days and do some sightseeing. And so Nanny, I just love to do that. Oh my goodness. And I just love riding in planes. It always makes me feel kind of fancy. That's what Nanny said. And the funny thing is, the airplanes are one of the few places where we really emphasize class, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, strangely enough, the airlines know this. The people in the front of the plane with those $1,000s seats and that kind of thing, they're the ones who actually pay for the rest of them. Did you know that? The airline makes nothing out of their coach passengers. It's all about the business class, and they let you know it as soon as you get there, right? Oh yes, we're seating our business class passengers now, and then they walk by, and everyone watches, and everyone feels just that much jealousy, and they're all situated, and once they're situated, the rest of us pile in, right? It's one of those few places where you know who the very important people are, and it becomes really clear when the food cart comes around, and they're having salmon and lobster bisque, and you're having pretzels. So Nancy loves to fly, and Kathy loves to fly, and they met up in Baltimore. And she said, so there we were headed out, and we got to Baltimore, and then we were going to fly into a little airport outside of Boston. So they get in the plane, and Nanny said, oh, it just always makes me feel so fancy to be on a plane. And so they ride on the plane, and they get to the airport just outside of Boston, and they're supposed to take another plane into Boston proper. So she gets there, and they step off the plane, and it's concrete. And they go down the thing, and then there's a little trailer sitting there. And then there was the smallest, itty-bittiest, teeny-tiniest little puddle jumper you have ever seen. And Nanny looked at that, and she said, is that our plane? You mean I got to get on that? Kathy said, Michael, it didn't have an engine. It had a propeller that was probably run by a gerbil on a wheel. Nanny said, well, honey, I don't want to get on that plane if the rubber band breaks. And so they're sitting there, and they're waiting, and this woman behind them's like, I got off in the plane, and now I'm nowhere, nothing around for miles other than this itty-bitty little trailer and this plane, right? And they're sitting there, and Nanny's like, well, I don't know how I feel about this, Kathy. And all of a sudden, a woman walked up to her with a clipboard. Now, I got to remind you, my grandmother is from West Virginia. And we don't talk about age in our house as a result. And that is, it sounds like a joke. I didn't know how old my grandmother was until she died. We were in the hospital one day when she had hurt herself, and she said, Michael, I am 82 years old. And it was the first time I'd ever heard her say it before. And then the nurse came in and said, how are you, Mrs. Cavender? I need some information from you. How old are you? And she asked a bunch of questions. She said, how old are you? And Nanny looked at me, and then she looked down at the bed, and she said, I'm 84. There are things you do not ask a elderly lady, and I pretended I didn't hear, y'all. I became very interested in my father's crossword puzzle. Every part of it was done. That's right. Now there are things that you don't ask, and age is one of them. But that will just get you shock, right? But this woman walked up to my grandmother and asked the question that you never ask a Southern lady if you don't want your head knocked off your shoulders. I mean, I'm telling the truth. I thought when she told, so she walks up to my grandmother and she said, "Hello, Mrs. Cavender, how are you?" "Oh, I'm fine, honey, how are you?" She said, "I'm fine. How much do you weigh?" And Nanny goes, "Why do you want to know?" She said, "Well, we need to know how much fuel to put in the plane." To which Nanny responded, "Honey, fill her up." At which point the woman said, "Ma'am, I need to know your weight. We have a scale over there. And I'm the only person who has this information. I'm the only person who knows." And Nanny goes, "I weigh 300 pounds. She didn't weigh anything like that, y'all. She said, "I weigh 300 pounds. And Kathy goes, "Nanny, you don't weigh 300 pounds. She goes, "Shut up. I am not going to die over the cradle of our nation because someone lied about their weight." So anyway, they made it to the film school, and Kathy was not even in the running. She came with her little folder, they came in limousines. And she said it was one of those moments where she thought, this is not what I want, And all the other candidates were really, really prestigious and really well known, and she was just some woman with a background from PBS. She worked for PBS at the time. But all of that goes to say, there's always this idea, right, in our culture of being the special one, being put in the special place, being in the preferred seating, getting a credit card that's just that much better than everyone else. There's always this idea in culture of having the best and the greatest, and being the best and the greatest, and being treated as the best and the greatest. And when we read today's scripture, and we read about James and John going to Jesus, and their first statement is so telling, and it tells you that nobody's changed in 2018 years plus. What do they say? "Master, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." Who doesn't? I'm going to call the bishop right now and tell him, "Bishop, I want you to do for me whatever I ask." We'll see how well that'll go over, right? And they make this statement, and then they say something that they have absolutely no idea how truly awful it is. "Well, we want one of us to sit at your right, and the other one to sit at your left when you come into your glory." Now, this is an interesting statement because they don't actually know what Jesus' glory looks like. They don't have the knowledge that we have of looking back on it and seeing what Jesus' glory looked like. What they had in their minds was Jesus as an emperor, Jesus ruling over Israel as king in the same way David did. And one of them would sit with Jesus on the palace on his right side, the other would sit on the palace on the left side, and they would attend to Jesus all the time, and they would be the ones. It's funny, I love watching British royal documentaries and learning about how they used to live. And do you know who the most powerful person in the court of the King of England was? The steward of the stool. Y'all know the kind of stool I'm talking about? Such a person would have to be the most trusted person in the court, right? And they were the ones who automatically had the king's ear at least 3 times a day, right? Or 2 times there, whenever he needed the steward of the stool. So people would go to him and they'd say, "Could you put in a good word for me with the king? Can you give me an audience?" And that would be the person who runs everything. And they're thinking that they're going to be for Jesus that kind of close relationship. Jesus will be king, we'll be his top advisors, and we will be set. We will be the VIP, and we will live in the VIP section. But Jesus says, you don't even know what you're asking. Are you willing to drink from the cup I have to drink from and be baptized with what I have to be baptized in? And that's a funny, fancy word. I don't think I'm guessing that it didn't actually mean baptism in the sense of the holy rite, but literally just a washing. Are you willing to be covered in what I'm going to be covered in? Are you willing to be washed in what I'm going to be washed in? And what would Jesus' cup be like? What would his washing be like? Would it be beautiful, sparkling water from Evian containers, one right after the other? Oh no. His washing is going to be his own blood dripping down his face. The cup that he's to drink from is one of pain and sorrow and suffering. And here James and John are, let us be the most important people in the kingdom without realizing what importance looks like in the Christian church, in the Christian message. For Jesus, the thing that makes him important is his ability and his desire to sacrifice. What does he say in the Garden of Gethsemane with these words? Father, take this cup from me, but not my will, but thine. I don't want to do it, God, says Jesus. It's going to hurt really bad. There's going to be pain, tremendous and powerful pain, and I don't want to, God. The Bible actually records that Jesus had sweat drops of blood coming down from his face, and what that actually is that it's actually a very rare medical thing that happens. There are actually some recorded records of this happening during 9/11. What happens is that your body, in knowing that it has to encounter something powerful and painful, your body ups your adrenaline level to such an extent that your blood is moving through your system so fast that some of it mixes with the water in your tear ducts. And even sweat, it mixes with your sweat glands as well. And so your body is running at such a rate that there will be red tears reported or red sweat being reported. And 9/11, they had lots of people who obviously were fighting to survive the attack. And what happened is that many of them had teardrops and sweat drops of blood. And it's recorded. This happens to people all over the world. So what does that tell us? That tells us that Jesus in this moment was in incredible distress, that he was incredibly, incredibly scared, that he was incredibly terrified, as any human would be, knowing what was going to happen to him the very next day. And that is what he offers us. I mean, think about that for just a minute. What does he say? Come with me and I will make your burden easy I'll make your burden easy and I will help you carry it. But the reality is, what does he say? But take up your cross and follow me. The V.I.P. section of God's kingdom does not look at all comfortable, right? It doesn't look easy, and it doesn't look like it's all based around my comfort. Now, you all know that I've made a joke or two about famous religious leader Joel Osteen. And he has those really bright and happy books, and if they're encouraging to you, it's fine. But what I want you to know is when he has this book called Your Best Life Now, Jesus' version of what your best life isn't comfort. It's not that you have to live in continual and broken suffering, but there is this idea that your life and my life and our lives together should be marked by sacrifice for the things that are really important. Jesus' entire ministry is one where he lays his own desires aside to help work and promote the desires of the salvation of all the people around them. This means that there was no prodigal that was too far away from Jesus. There was no person that was too far down the ladder. There was no person that he wasn't willing to go the extra mile for. This means that Jesus was continually allowing himself to lay aside his own desires for his life and to lay down his life for the people that he cared about, his friends, indeed, all of us. And when he talks to his disciples, he tells them this: your life is supposed to be marked by that same kind of sacrificial loving and that same kind of sacrificial giving. This is the smallest, most insignificant example I could give you from my own life. And even as I say it, I'm embarrassed because I'm not Mother Teresa, I'm telling you that much. I have insomnia, and sometimes I can't sleep. In fact, I had quite a bout of it last night. And one night I lay there, and I tried going to sleep, and I tried doing all the things that I do. I take an extra shower sometimes, that relaxes the muscles, helps me get to sleep. Try the warm milk, try a thing of hot chocolate, everything you can possibly imagine, right? So finally, I was in Herbst at the time. Finally, I managed to fall asleep around 7:30 in the morning. I know, because that was the last time I looked at the clock. So I'm finally asleep, and the phone rings. It's 7:45.
Oh.
It's the hospital. They need me to come right away. There's been a car accident. So I get it right out of bed and I head over to the hospital. That's the only example I can give of the moment that it felt really sacrificial. And what a small thing that is. When you consider the people who have done marvelous things, when you consider the sacrifices so many people have made, Mother Teresa is just one good example. There are hundreds of thousands more in the life of the church. All the people who've decided that God is the most important thing, and they go all in. What does the VIP section look like in the kingdom of God? I don't know who will be assigned to the right, to Jesus, to the right and to the left. What martyr, what great person will it be? And it's not ours to know, but it is ours to seek after. Lord, I want to be the kind of person, the kind of saint that would find himself not embarrassed at the banquet of heaven. Many of you know I spend my summers in a monastery for about a week, and the sisters always joke with the other sisters. In Roman Catholicism, they have this thing called relics, body parts and things from saints and things like that. And so the sisters always joke. Well, sister, make sure you save those toenail clippings. We might need that if you ever get sainted. Once you die, we never know which one of us might actually make the cut. And they laugh and they joke about that. And then as the sisters are telling me about this, they said, but we're all hoping and trying to be that kind of good. Let's all try and be a little more saintly. Let's all try and be that kind of self-sacrificial love. Let's all try and be that kind of person for Jesus. Okay? I'll do my best. You do your best. And God will take us the rest of the way.
Amen.